Chapter 9, Phase 3, Tips for the Late Middle of Teaching an Online Course, presented by Group 5. What's happening during the late middle phase of a course? This is the time when students are integrating newly gained knowledge into their knowledge structures by taking more responsibility for what they're learning. This is when they're engaging in deep thought, exploring and figuring out misunderstandings, getting to the root of the discipline content. Leveraging the power of questions. Let's look at some ways in which we can make the best use of questions. Questions and answers. Turn them upside down and inside out. As faculty, you want to know what students have learned about the concepts and ideas that have been presented in the course. As new material is presented, it is important that concepts introduced in the beginning of the course are revisited, reviewed, and discussed. Activities should include students developing content questions so knowledge structures are revealed. This will allow teachers to see what students know and how it is that they know it. Student questioning. Inquiry as a reflection of knowledge. Students should be asked to generate questions. When they state what they don't know, they create space in their knowledge structures for new knowledge or concepts to be added. This requires them to think, review what they know, and identify what they don't know. Complex questions require students to engage in concept development by having them examine the links and relationships between existing knowledge and newly forming knowledge. Discussion boards for student questioning. Questioning can be a form of testing and evaluating student knowledge. Some ways for students to form questions? Well, you can have them play Stump the Faculty Member. You can also have them think of questions to ask to solve problems. You can have students share problems they still struggle with. You can also have them base questions on class readings, and you can encourage questioning of information from the web. 3 techniques for making your students' knowledge visible. Getting to know your students' zone of proximal development is an ongoing task and should involve the techniques that balance input and output experiences. The first technique, interviewer expert modeling. Ask students to develop questions based on reading, research, or listening assignments. Question making requires them to take in, reflect, and assimilate knowledge, and it will help you see how they are structuring knowledge in their heads. Assign students the role of interpreter and interviewer, and then switch the roles for the next activity. Technique number 2, identifying pattern, relationships, and linkages. Have students identify patterns and relationships in new content. When students make new knowledge their own, they link these ideas and concepts to their already existing and established knowledge structures. Technique number 3, identifying insights. Strive to help students develop metacognitive skills by having them reflect on insights and eye-opening experiences, and on how newly gained knowledge and data leads to fresh or increased understanding of information. Moving beyond knowledge integration to defining problems and finding solutions. By this stage in the course, students should be encouraged to apply content by identifying existing problems and proposing solutions to solve them. Application of knowledge will lead to lasting acquisition of newly gained information. Defining problems and deciding on resolution strategies. Part of the growth that comes from learning is being able to identify areas of dissonance and inconsistency in content and in other resources, as well as in the teacher's beliefs. Problem formulation and solution behaviors. In a 2006 study, Murphy and Manzanares identified 11 behaviors common in formulating problems and 8 behaviors common in problem resolution. They further went on to identify the high-level cognitive behaviors as those of identifying solutions, evaluating solutions, and acting on solutions. So the question is, how do we develop problem solvers and critical thinkers out of our students? The key is to get our students used to and engaging in the above behaviors to help them formulate and problem solve. Assessing learning as you go. It is important to provide students with feedback and to let them know how they're doing on the course. Are you reading my postings? Do you know who I am? Simple rules about feedback in online learning. Research shows that faculty feedback makes a difference in student satisfaction with a course. Feedback, any communication or dialogue that continues or concludes a train of thought, is important to student knowledge integration. What's important is to provide feedback early and often. Before a course begins, you can ask students about their expected learning goals. Take notes on this information and on any personal profile information they may share with you. Then, make connections between the course content and the students' goals or experiences. This will let students know that you care and that you're paying attention. In addition, it will help build community. Provide feedback on assignments when expected. Clearly state feedback turnaround times. For simple questions, it might be 24 hours. For larger projects, it might be up to a week. Feedback on the first assignments is very important to students. Remember that, because based on these first assignments, students can then kind of plan as far as time and effort expenditure on following assignments. Provide rapid response to questions. For effective time management, students should be encouraged to answer each other's questions in the open forum. The faculty should monitor the forum, though, for accuracy and to provide further support where needed. Provide feedback that is personal and formative for learning. Quality feedback shows analysis and reflection of student contributions. In addition, make it personal. When you make it personal, again, it shows that you're getting to know your students and that you care about them. Feedback on assignments, being timely and efficient. Feedback should be personalized and customized to shaping an individual's growth. It should be timely. Standard time for projects is about a week. Be explicit and reaffirm the feedback time frame and inform students of the feedback process. You might also want to use audio tools to provide the feedback. It will save you time. Conceptual feedback reminders. Keep aware of students' zone of proximal development and structure your comments keeping in mind of where students are coming from and shape their thinking by reinforcing their strengths and guiding them to integrate those ideas. Create simple templates listing criteria and examples of how you might encourage, challenge, and reinforce the core concepts. Audio feedback, again, for substantive feedback to individuals might be a good idea. Examples of feedback? You could use rubrics for written assignments or checklists for short written assignments. Reshaping learning habits of online students. The key here is to help students adapt their learning habits to online classes. Teaching strategies for managing learner expectations. Make sure to praise students for good questions posted in email, but encourage them to post them in the discussion forum to promote student involvement. Post questions or observations to get students started. Use an informal name for the question space to take away the pressure from the students. Share with students tips from former students or graduate students. Some of these might include how to make the most of online discussions, how to stay motivated, or how to make connections with fellow students. Remember, it's best to balance the dialogue in an online class. A third of it should be faculty to learner. A third of it should be students to students, and the last third should involve students and the course resources. Customizing and personalizing learning. The key here is to accommodate learners' interests and learning conditions, while at the same time respecting the performance goals of a course. Guidelines for developing project requirements. Be flexible and vary the size of teams. Provide a broad list of topics so that students will be more invested. Be explicit about the task model for the course. Specify the key features of the task, provide directions, and what the expected work product will be. Also, provide process guidelines. Provide a challenge, confidence, and interest, and ask yourself, are the learners doing more for the teacher or for themselves? Managing and facilitating group projects. Make sure to monitor and guide group projects along. Check in, establish checkpoints, and monitor. Make sure that everybody is participating. Communicate the presentation tools available to them, both the synchronous and the asynchronous tools. Additional thoughts. Provide guidelines for problem solving. Problems should, if at all possible, be resolved within the group, and the faculty member should be the last resort for conflict resolution. Assessing group projects. Techniques for assessing group projects. Assess both the process and the final project, and make sure to use a grading rubric. You can use a simple scale of 4 to 5 points for each thing you're looking for. Peer reviews. Make sure to use them. These are good tools to encourage participation, and they are most useful in the proposal and design phase, although they are also very good to use for final evaluation of the project. A rubric for analyzing critical thinking. Use a critical thinking rubric and use the 7 criteria for evaluating a learner's progress and developing critical thinking skills. What the rubric will do is it'll help you identify the evidence pointing to the 3 stages of critical thinking skills. These are emerging, developing, and mastering stages, and you can use the rubric to measure the maturity of the thinking. 4 effective practices during project time. Help learners get unstuck on projects. Focus on techniques that will help support and encourage them. Have them share in writing what they are struggling with. Ask them what their next steps are, and ask them how their team is working. Remind them of the resources available and encourage them to customize. Coach learners on personalizing their projects. They can post their selections, and then you can help them choose the ones that might work best for them. Ask learners to post progress reports or updates. Have them identify next steps, and have them create task lists. Finally, communicate often. Use the announcement tool. Schedule and question and answer as often as needed. Use the discussion board. Community empowerment and social networking. What are some of the networking and social learning tools out there that we can use with discussion boards, blogs, and wikis? Course Middles and Muddles, souped-up conversations that help build community. Team up course discussions for a week. Put students in groups of 2 for 1 week to respond to some open-ended questions created by you. This then leads to collaboration and sustained conversations. Make time for learners to develop the tough questions. Have them create questions to share with you and other students in order to try and stump everyone. This process can create lively discussion, and it also allows you to see what they know, what they don't know, and maybe what they would like to know. Construct a round robin of knowledge construction tasks. Encourage substantive knowledge building through the following 5-phase process: sharing and comparing, discovering and exploring, negotiating of meaning, testing and modifying of proposed synthesis or co-construction, and agreeing on final statements. This task is good for team projects of 2 or 3 students. Using social networking techniques to build a learning community. Social networking tools allow students to quickly and easily share information and interact with each other online. Social networking pedagogical strategy with individual course projects. You can create personal project blog or discussion area for each student. The student then creates some posts, each student responds, the faculty member comments, students then integrate these suggestions into their project and finally post their completed project, where then the group or class members can review the project. Tweaks and comments on encouraging a social networking environment. Use a blog. The strategy is nice because it works like a journal. It's chronologically in order, and it has the ability to utilize media. Experts, a touch of spice. Experts can provide a change of pace for the course. It's best to invite them in the second half of the course when students already have developed enough understanding of the content. You can invite friends or colleagues. You can have them cover anything that has to do with a core concept or current trends. How do you set it up? Simple question and answer format is good. PowerPoints always work, as well as do podcasts.